Imagine that you've been accepted to join a prestigious local team or club, a soccer team, for example. The rules are simple. Show up on time, practice hard, and work together as a team. You've made significant sacrifices to be a part of this team. Grueling practices, costly membership fees, and the expense of matching uniforms and gear. But to you, it's all worth it. After joining, you find out that the coach's daughter, who also plays for the team, doesn't pay. In fact, everyone else's dues pay for her membership and equipment. What's more, she regularly shows up late to practice without consequences. Confused, you ask a teammate what's going on. They shrug. That's just how it is. She's the coach's kid. The rules don't apply to her. Then it gets worse. One day at practice, the coach pulls you aside. His daughter's phone has been stolen from the locker room. You're the newest team member, so you must be the thief. You're kicked off the team immediately. No evidence, no proof, no questions asked. Let's break this down. What are some of the unfair things that happened here? First, the coach and his daughter took your money and used it for themselves. Second, they ignored the rules that everyone else had to follow. Third, you were stripped of your place on the team, which you paid for, and punished without a legitimate reason. As frustrating as this scenario might be, imagine if this sort of abuse of power happened on a larger scale. For example, across an entire country. In the last lesson, we established that in a society, people agree to be governed in exchange for the protection of their rights. Today, we'll answer the question, what is the role of law in government? To do so, we'll learn about two important ways that a society ensures the government plays by the rules so that everyone's rights are protected. Let's go. Let's start by going back to a time when the government didn't play by the rules. Make sure you have your timeline out so you can follow along in your guided notes. We find ourselves in England in the year 1215 CE. The ruler, King John, has essentially unlimited power. He demands high taxes to support personal projects. He imprisons his rivals without trials and seizes their property for his own use. Needless to say, the people aren't happy about this. A civil war breaks out, and the rebels capture the capital, London. Realizing he's outnumbered, King John agrees to meet with the rebels at Runnymede, a rural area outside London, where they present him with a written list of demands. First, the people demand that the king must follow established rules, the law of the land, just like everyone else. Why is it important that everyone, including leaders, obeys the law? Well, if a leader doesn't have to obey the law, they can take advantage of others. For example, imposing excessive taxes, seizing property, imprisoning rivals. Does this ring a bell, King John? This principle is known as the rule of law. All people, including government leaders, must obey the law. But for people to be treated fairly, the laws need to be fair. So the rebels present new laws to the king. Let's examine one. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned or stripped of his rights or possessions. Nor will we proceed with force against him, except by the lawful judgment of his equals or by the law of the land. What does this say about how people should be treated under the law? That's right. A person can't be put in prison, stripped of their property, or have force used against them unless they've broken the law. This idea is called due process. Specifically, due process refers to the requirement that the government follow the same fair procedures before depriving anyone of life, liberty, or property. So King John's habit of throwing his enemies in jail and taking their land, it's gotta stop. In essence, these demands establish that the government's power is limited by law, and certain rights cannot be taken away arbitrarily. The king reluctantly agrees. This agreement, made on June 15, 1215, becomes known as the Magna Carta. It would be the first of many steps toward a more just government. Fast forward to 1689. The English Bill of Rights strengthens the idea that rulers are accountable to the law, not above it. It took the early ideas of due process and applied them more broadly and clearly as a way to protect individual rights. The same year, John Locke publishes his most famous book, Two Treatises of Government. The ideas of philosophers like Locke bring the notions of natural rights and limits on government power into the collective consciousness. It was in this political and social climate that the founding fathers of the United States emerged. As subjects of the British Empire in the Americas, they studied the Magna Carta, the English Bill of Rights, and the writings of Locke. As the United States was plotting its course toward independence, founding father John Adams wrote that he envisioned a government of laws and not of men. What do you think this statement means? That's right. No one is above the law. Not kings, not presidents, not anyone. We're at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. It was here that Adams' vision was realized when the Constitution was ratified in 1787. It became the supreme law of the U.S. Everyone had to follow it, even the president. In the Constitution, it states, "No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law." Which core principles that we've discussed does this quote include? First, due process. Next, it's connected with the natural rights of life, liberty, and property. Let's go into a little more detail about how the rule of law and due process protect these natural rights. Remember, a government is in place to protect people's rights. It does this using laws. These laws are expected to be fair and to serve the common good. However, these laws really only work if they are shared by all in society, and the procedure for enforcing them is fair. That's where rule of law and due process come into play. How do you think the rule of law might help protect people's rights? As a reminder, the rule of law states that all people, including government leaders, must obey the law. So government officials can't make up rules on the spot or treat people unfairly just because they want to. The government must follow the laws it has created, and those laws must respect the rights of individuals. This helps prevent abuse of power. Second, the rule of law says that laws must apply equally to everyone, no matter their wealth, race, religion, or background. This helps protect people from discrimination or unfair treatment. So, the rule of law sets the foundation that laws must be fair and equally applied. But what happens when a person is accused of breaking one of those laws? That's where due process comes in. How do you think due process might help protect people's rights? Due process is about how laws are enforced, a fair procedure. Imagine that you've been arrested. What steps would you expect to happen next if the government were following due process? Due process includes 3 parts. Notice, you must be told what the government is accusing you of. A hearing, you must be given a chance to respond or defend yourself. And fair decision-making. A neutral judge must decide the outcome. Without due process, the government could imprison you or me or anyone for no reason and without a fair trial. So, to sum up, the law exists to protect people's rights and maintain order in society. The rule of law binds everyone to that law, including officials. Due process is the proper procedure for enforcing these laws. Both of these components are necessary to protect natural rights. We end our lesson in front of the U.S. Capitol building. The job of the people who work here is to make laws. But these laws are just as much for the relatively few in this building as they are for the millions outside of it. Today, we learned that without shared rules, individuals and groups can be unfairly treated and rights may be threatened. As we wrap up, think about our earlier example of the soccer team. A soccer team, especially a private or local club, is not legally required to follow constitutional principles in the same way that government institutions are. But in this story, it helps us see how unfair it is when rules don't apply to everyone equally, and why these ideas matter so much in a democratic government. Let's reimagine the soccer team scenario, but this time apply the ideas of rule of law and due process. How might things have been handled differently? This scenario reveals that the rule of law and due process are important to all of us. After all, they're in place to protect our individual rights. If they're important to us, they should be important to the government as well. After all, it's there to protect the people. Until next time, remember, this is your world. Let's work together to make it better. See you next time.
Hey, hey.